Wait for it. Wait for it. And we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our returning guest, Miss Charli Cox, introduce herself to our listeners and viewers at home.
Hello, everybody. As JR said, I am Charli. I write science fiction and military fantasy with a sense of humor because life is life, and why should we take ourselves so seriously? If we can find a little joy in the everyday, why not embrace it? And I'm happy to be here.
All right, and the next part is where we first found the guests. And so this time it was in the Discord for the Three Ravens, chatting about nonsense probably when we were writing. Yeah. But here we are, and such is life. All right, so because you've not been a solo guest before, you have not answered the religion questions properly. So are you ready for this?
Dear, I am. Let's do it.
All right, Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
I love me a good space western. I'm going Firefly.
Okay. Did you see that after all these years, Firefly is finally getting their own Funko Pops?
I did not. Why would you tell me that?
Because somebody just told me, and I'm like, can I justify that expense as business? Could I write it off on my taxes? Would that make it better? I don't know. I'm with you.
So many obsessions, and you're enabling another one, a new one I didn't even know existed. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. And the problem is all the hobbies and then not all the space to store all the things.
Yeah, and the investment in said hobbies. Yes, that's always.
Yeah, I had to get rid of. I had a bunch of the Star Wars figures because I was convinced at one point in time they might be worth money. This is before they kept tanking the franchise, and eventually you realize they're just collecting dust, and I gave them away to people that would actually play with them.
Hey, as long as they're gonna appreciate them, that's better.
Right, they were still in their boxes because I had them on display. I'm like, I don't have room for that anymore. I had to downsize. But all right, and because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia?
I am a fan of the classics, so I'm going to go with C.S. Lewis and Chronicles of Narnia.
Okay. Are you also disappointed as a kid when you found out your closet was not the same as a wardrobe and it didn't go anywhere cool?
I was so bummed. I think I legit cried.
I had a moment where I was like kind of mad. I was like, why'd you do this to me?
Yeah, same with the Secret Garden. My garden had no secrets. I was bitterly disappointed.
Yeah, mine barely stay alive. So, I mean, I can't even get to the secret part. I got to get to the garden part.
Yeah. That is also a struggle for sure.
Yeah, whatever the opposite of green thumb, I guess a black thumb. Yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same.
I try every year. We're on year 6 of the Victory Garden, and so far I've gotten 2 puny potatoes.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. So for me, I tried a couple of years ago and it didn't go very well. For some reason, our spring season was really, really cold. And so we didn't get near as many heat days as we needed to grow anything. And so the last year and this year, I just said, forget it. I'm not even going to bother. It's not worth it. It's just an exercise in frustration. So
yeah, it's expensive because you buy all the bulbs and stuff, and it's about $100 every year. But it gets me outside and doing something. So
yeah, there is that.
I did really good right up until we had that 105-degree heat wave that came through for a week, and I just could not water it enough. And then I watered it. I'm like, okay, let me do this. And then I realized the water was like refracting the heat, and then I got spots. It was just bad.
Oh no!
But I'll keep trying. Next year, I might do a little different, figure something different out.
There you go. Yeah, for me and my local farmers market, they love me because I'm one of their best customers. So
my problem is like I don't go through it as quickly as you get it, so stuff inevitably goes bad. So that's one thing I need to learn to do. Like I can soups and I can like stews and stuff, but I really need to learn to can vegetables. And one day I'm gonna make my own pickles.
That's actually something that I'm actually pretty good at. Canning, not the growing, but the canning I can definitely do.
Yeah, I just haven't tried, and sometimes the recipe type books are written like you already know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really need to do is just find a YouTube video because I'm sure it's out there. Rumble, BitChute, something. There's got to be.
Yeah, I think when I first started canning, I want to say it was stuff on YouTube, pretty simple to find, and then some books that I found at my local library as well. So it's a fun hobby. It's time consuming, but it's not difficult, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Then the other part is finding out where to store everything.
Yeah, back to that storage issue we had before. Yep.
Yeah, my sister was moving and she had a bunch of like frozen rotisserie chicken meat. I'm like, well, she's like, I've just got to throw it away. It's gonna go bad and I can't move with it. I'm like, oh, we can learn to can it. So I made like 180 quarts of chicken noodle soup.
Oh my
I got
God.
stored, and I sent about half of it with her when she moved. It was a
Nice.
fun exercise.
Yeah.
Glass jars are an expensive investment. Glad that I did it a little bit at a time, but still, that adds up.
Yeah, I found that if you can find mason jars at garage sales, that's the way to go, especially like estate sales when, grandma used to can and then she passed away and then the younger generations don't have an interest. That's where
Ooh,
you
I
can
didn't even think about that.
yeah, that's where you can score some really good deals on mason jars.
Yeah, and I accepted that you can't reuse the lids.
I was just gonna
So
say, yep.
I was kind of just. I found out why some of mine weren't sealing long. I'm like, well, this popped and it's only a year old. I guess I gotta eat it so it doesn't go bad.
Hmm.
And Jana was like, yeah, you can't reuse the lids, Jr. I'm like, well, crap.
Right.
Why didn't you tell me that in the book?
Yeah, you can reuse the rings sometimes, but you got to be careful. You got to really check them and make sure that there aren't any squeegee things in the
Yeah,
underside. Yeah.
but it's a learning curve, but it's useful. All the skills our grandparents had and didn't pass on.
Yeah, the old ways are the ways that we should really be focusing on anymore. But
Yeah, and I think everyone kind of recognized some of that, at least our generation, when COVID hit and all that. And now I'm
yes,
like, 30 acres in the woods, that doesn't sound like torture anymore. That sounds heavenly.
yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Our parents worked very hard to leave the farms and go to the cities, and now we want to do the exact opposite.
Yep. Well, it's like, what's the joke that the most popular game now is Minecraft? The children yearn for the mines.
But all I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like, all Minecraft is this like virtual Legos. Get some. Well, no, never mind. Legos are expensive now.
They are, especially the themed ones. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can't even get the kits that are just random stuff that you can imagine on your own. Don't even
Oh,
get me started on Lincoln Logs. We used to have those too,
I loved those.
right? Built some crazy log cabins.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The GI Joes defended the Alamo a lot. Sometimes they won, sometimes not. History be damned.
Yeah. I used to have My Little Ponies hopping over the fence that extended
Oh,
from the Lincoln
well.
Log Cabin.
So I used to borrow my little sister's My Little Ponies so they could be mounts for the cavalry.
Oh, perfect.
Because sharing is friendship or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It didn't work then either, by the way. I still got in trouble.
Oh, no.
After the cavalry charge, though, so we're good.
Yeah. As long as they accomplish their mission, that's what matters, right?
Right? I mean, it's because I didn't get caught until after, but that's besides the point. So speaking of our childhood, one of the crying shames of growing up is we stop asking each other the important questions. So we do aim to bring that back. And I'm going to ask you, Charlie, what is your favorite dinosaur?
It is the Brontosaurus, not the Brachiosaurus. It's the Brontosaurus. I love me a good long neck.
Okay. Is it because you watched the shows as a kid?
Probably. Flintstones, Land Before Time. Probably. Yeah.
The joke that the Flintstones and the Jetsons are the same universe has popped around before. Have you seen those?
I have. And it's hilarious because I never made that connection as a kid. But it's like, the beauty of hindsight. It's kind of like, huh.
And they never showed them going to the ground. The crazy thing is the Jetsons is like 5 right now because wasn't he born in like 2020 if I remember correctly, something around there? Like he'd have been born already for the Jetsons' future.
Oh.
There was a meme going around. That's how I study the world right now. As I laugh at memes.
Hey, sometimes that's the only place to find the truth anymore.
Right. So some people go to Fox, some people go to CNN. I go to Twitter for the memes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So. All right, that's an excellent answer, by the way. So, are you also a fan of Jurassic Park?
Yeah. I haven't seen any of the newer ones, but I remember the first one back when I was in high school, and I enjoyed that one. That was good.
How come you haven't seen the newer ones?
Life, busy. I don't know.
Fair. Life does happen. Bills want to be paid. You know how that goes. Kids want to
Yep.
eat.
Yes, they do, especially when they're preteens. Oh, my grocery bill. Yeah.
R.I.P. your budget. So if you didn't have a reason to buy her books before, do it now because her kids need to eat. I feel like we should get the rights to the Sarah McLachlan music that they play in the background so we could do the sad music. You too can help keep a starving artist fed.
Right. I can sing karaoke, but I don't think I want to do my own voiceover for that one.
I mean, I guess anyone can sing karaoke if they're drunk enough.
That does help. Yeah.
A little bit of a social lubrication. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I've ever actually done karaoke though.
Ah,
I've worked at a coffee shop that did karaoke night for whatever strange reason when I was in grad school, but I was always behind the bar making the shots of espresso.
gotcha.
Generally to sober up the drunk ones singing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. We are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. So, coffee or tea, and how are you drinking it this hot August day?
So, being that it is summer and freaking hot out here on the West Coast, I am taking my coffee with some ice and a lot of sugar and half because I like it sweet.
Okay. Whereabouts on the West Coast are you?
I'm in Southwest Oregon, about
Ooh,
3 hours. Yeah, 3 hours south of Portland and maybe 2.5 hours north of the California border.
okay. So it gets a lot of rain up there.
It does about 8, 9 months out of the year. And then summer is hot. And I don't know if you can tell, smoky. We're getting into fire season now. So that's always
Yeah,
fun.
I was told Oregon and Washington State are a lot like Scotland in the weather department. It's either raining, fixing to rain, or just got done raining.
Most of the year, yes, that would be correct.
All right. So, how did you like? Obviously, we're here to later talk about your book, but you didn't become a writer without first loving to read. So, how did you get into the nerdy things?
Oh, goodness. Nerdy stuff. I guess I kind of grew up with it. Watched Star Trek Next Generation when I was little. Went to see Star Wars in the movie theater with my uncle and my cousins. Fantasy was just kind of, the classics, Legend and Labyrinth and all those fun Gen X movies that kind of created who we are as human beings. And then as I got older, what did I shift gears to? Read more mystery and crime. I read some Stephen King and John Grisham and some of that. And then dad, one day I was really bored, and I'm an only child. Never tell your parent when you're an only child that you're bored. Thankfully, he didn't hand me a mop, but he did hand me a book. And it was actually a good one. It was by Isaac Asimov. And so that started my love of reading science fiction, not just watching it on TV. And so, yeah, it's been quite the ride. It's been a lot of fun.
My mother always would tell us only boring people are bored, and then she would give me chores if I ever said those hallowed
Yeah,
words.
yeah. Like I said, I was fortunate that he handed me a book and not something else. Definitely.
Yeah, that was when I would get to go mow the yard or clean up the dog stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All the fun stuff.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So, but we're not scarred. I held a flashlight for my dad, so nothing can get to me at this point. My soul is already dead. I don't know. Well, you were an only child. Normally, I say the girls didn't get that experience, but you didn't have a brother to take the experience. So, did you ever hold the flashlight for your father?
All the time.
So you know our pain. You get it.
I do. Yep.
I
Yep.
could
And
relate to that scene in the Christmas Story where he's like, "Where did you hear those words?" And he flashes back to all the times he's working with his dad, and then blames the bully. I copied you, Dad.
learned
Good
it
times.
from watching you. Yeah.
Good times. All right. So when you went into the reading, you started with Isaac Asimov. Did you go into the fantasy side of it too, or was it always sci-fi for you?
It was more sci-fi and then I guess paranormal fantasy. Later in life, my husband, we were dating at the time. He actually introduced me to Laurel K. Hamilton and the Anita Blake series, so
Okay.
that was fun. And then had my second child, and life got busy and didn't really have time to read. And then one day, my husband's like, "Honey, you really need to read this series." Um, he actually enjoyed the series so much he was part of the fan club, and this was during COVID, and so they would do a lot of video chats on Messenger, and I'd be kind of in the periphery listening to what they were talking about, and I'd chime in on conversations every once in a while. And he's like, "Honey, you can join the fan club and hang out with us." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds fun, but you have to read the book first." It's like, oh, fine. So I started reading Cartwright's Cavaliers by Mark Wandry in the Four Horsemen universe. And then I read the second one and the third one and the fourth one. And this was in 2019. And I was hooked. I went a fun universe, fast paced, tons of aliens, humanity kicking butt. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And then at the end of 2020, I found myself without a job and I had lots of free time. And I always liked writing when I was younger, but then, life happened, kids, job, career, bills, etc. Didn't have time to write. Well, now that I didn't have a job anymore, I thought maybe I could start writing again, just, to give me something to do to, keep my brain busy while I'm looking for another job. And then there was an open call for a short story, and I thought, you know what? What the heck? I'll go for it. And wrote a short story and submitted it, and it didn't go anywhere, and kept trying, kept trying, kept trying. And my first published story was actually in a Four Horsemen anthology a couple of years ago. So talk about coming full circle.
Okay. What part of the universe did you write about in that one?
So that one was I actually created my own mercenary company, Price's Pilgrims. My main character, Lydia Price, she is in a lot of debt because the mercenaries are kind of, this is at the point after the Omega War, where there's not a whole lot of money. Humanity's trying to rebuild. They've been kind of decimated by some of the other races out in the galaxy. And so my character is about to lose her bar, which is the last thing that she has from her husband, who was a mercenary. And he was killed years ago on an off planet contract. He never came home. And so this bar is all she has left of him. Well, she's going to lose the bar because people aren't going out. They're not buying drinks. She can't make payroll. She can't pay her taxes. And so she has a choice through the Phoenix Initiative. She can either lose her bar, go bankrupt, and be homeless, or she can start a merc company of her own, hire a bunch of aliens, take them all off world, and maybe save her bar. And so that's the decision that she has to make in that story.
Okay. Why a bar?
Why not a bar? Isn't that where most great stories happen? A something, and a something walk into a bar. I mean, how many jokes start that way, right?
I mean, I have a misspent use, so I'm a bad example. But
We've
if
already
my mother
established.
asks, we were drinking water there.
Yeah. Or soda. Yeah. They have soda at bars.
It was a soda bar. That's right. There you go. I like it.
Yeah.
Fountain,
Exactly.
soda fountain bar.
Yeah.
So, or chape. It's a soda chape. I don't know.
Yes.
It sounds more fancy if you got an extra P and an E at the end.
Yeah, like frappe, right? Instead of frap.
Exactly.
Yep.
It just looks better. So when you first started writing, because obviously you said you started writing again. So when were you writing the first time? Was it when you were just a kid, bored and telling yourself stories, or was it for class?
So for class, and then like most angsty teenagers, a little bit of poetry, a couple of songs here and there. Nothing that would ever I would want to share with anybody ever if I could find them, which thank God I can't. But it was just something to kind of, again, work through some emotions and get some ideas out of my head and on paper. And it was kind of therapeutic. And I guess after losing my job, writing again was, again, therapy, kind of get some of those feelings out somewhere in a constructive manner. So It worked out, I think.
I at one point tried to write poetry, but that's because I read Beowulf and the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Iliad, and I'm like, I could totally do that. Not so much.
Yeah, no, it's a lot harder than people think. It really is.
Well, especially when you're writing that kind of poetry. But luckily, I had a very Southern English teacher, and she just like, bless your heart. And I started writing other things.
Yeah.
Because that's the kiss of death in the South, by the way.
Yeah. Bless your heart. I was just going to say, bless your heart does not mean the same thing in the South as it does on the West Coast. For those of you who have to listen at home.
Right. That is like, isn't that special?
I
guess if you're from the Northeast. So you started writing again just to fill in the time. At what point in time did you realize, crap, this is actually kind of a career? I'm doing it more than just a short story here and there. Because there's some that'll do that. Like I got published, I got a copy of the book, I'm good. But you kept going.
Yeah, I did. So speaking of the Discord where you and I met, I was talking to Hillbilly, and I actually, the first short story that I ever sold was in one of his anthologies, Tomorrow's Hope, but it wasn't published right away. And so we were talking about that story, and he sent me a message, and he says, "Hey, so you sold me this story. What else are you writing?" And I went, "I don't know, short stories here and there." And he said, "So, how do you feel about writing something for me in the JTF universe?" And I went, "Yeah, I've read all those books. I've read the anthologies. That'd be
Wait,
really fun."
JTF, isn't that a canon publishing? Isn't this a canon publishing series?
It used to be.
Okay.
It used to be with Canon, and I don't know the details, but Three Ravens is now publishing JTF stories.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hillbilly had reached out to me to write in the JTF universe, and I asked him, "So I didn't think you were doing any more JTF anthologies." And he said, "I'm not." I went, "So you want me to write you a book?" He went, "Yes, Charlie, I would like you to write me a book." I went, "Oh my God. Okay, sure. I've never written a book before, but okay, why not?" And so I wrote the book, and then wrote another short story, wrote another book with a friend of mine, and I've been writing ever since. So yeah, how did this become a career? Here I am. Not something I had planned, but I'm okay with it. It's fun. I get to meet cool people and talk on the internet, so it's not all bad.
So how many books are you up to now? Like a billion?
No, I've written three, two, one published and one coming out soon. So yeah,
So you've got the Fey Wars, which is out.
yes,
You've got the one we're talking about, which is in pre-order.
correct.
When is the pre-order going out?
So the pre-order is live. Well, the pre-order is live now. The release date is July 25th.
Oh, it'll be out when this episode airs.
Oh, sweet. Perfect.
And then, so I'm just checking it out. You've got a bunch of anthologies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's, I mean, eight properties under your name ain't bad to start with.
I'm not complaining at all, considering that I started writing, like I said, in late 2021, wasn't published until 2023. So interesting. In my former life, I was a realtor a very, very long time ago, and I went to a seminar, and something that always stuck with me is that whenever people are trying to do something new, they underestimate, or rather they overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 5. And I've found that to be really true, because I started writing and I didn't get published within a year, but here we are, not even 5 years from when I started getting serious about writing, and I've got 2 books coming out and a handful of short stories and anthologies. If you would have told me that 5 years ago that I would be where I am now, I would not have believed you. So I guess there was truth to that old adage. Who knew?
Okay. So what is it? Because you mentioned that you write paranormal now, which both the Fey Wars and this kind of fit into.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about paranormal action adventure stories that appeals to you?
So I like the military fantasy aspect of these universes. Mil sci-fi is something that I've really enjoyed. The religion questions from earlier this episode, Stargate wasn't an option, but Stargate was one of my favorite TV shows when I was in high school and college. We don't do time math. Thanks, Melissa. But I loved Stargate, and so the military science fiction aspect really appeals to me. So I really enjoy writing that. And then as far as writing in JTF universe and writing in Fey Wars universe, I was invited, and so I liked the universes. I had read other books in the series, and I was already familiar with the world and how it worked, and I thought, why not? I'll go for it. Let's see what happens.
For the record, I watched the Stargate movie in the theater, and I'm like, this is going to be something someday. Now, I remember that because I might have said that about other franchises that just ended in a movie, but I remember that because then they got the TV series and years of fun. Having said that, I loved Stargate. Even Stargate Universe, much aligned though it is.
Never could get into that one. I loved SG1. I enjoyed Atlantis. Never could get into Universe.
I loved it too. They gave us no ending because it went to Fox Entertainment, where all good shows go to die.
Oh, just like Firefly. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and then they were like, "Oh, well, we'll give you a graphic novel to end this." So I spent $30 to buy it on launch day for a graphic novel that ended in a freaking cliffhanger.
Oh,
Those rat bastards! I still, but I will say, it is one of the franchises that if they called me and they're like, "Hey, JR, we want you to write a book in this universe," I'm stopping everything.
Oh,
I'm just saying, Stargate, Fallout, Elder Scroll, Halo. When I was younger, I don't game as much anymore, but mostly because it's a time suck, and I realized, what was that? I was going to play for an hour, and that was 4 days ago.
Yeah.
And then kids get pissy about not eating, so
they whine. The whining, yeah.
The whining. So yeah, I absolutely love the Stargate, and I like the idea that you can incorporate some of the mythology into modern kind of storytelling, which they did with Stargate. And you're, I don't want to say Fae is necessarily modern or is mythology in the form of like the gods are, but it's up there in the lore and myth of various cultures.
Well, and it depends on which book in Fae Wars you're reading. So I don't talk about much mythology per se, other than Native American lore, because that's where Sasquatch comes from in my book. But some of the other books do touch on more mythology, and there's been some Aztec references, and then others that I can't think of off the top of my head. So it really depends on and that's the beauty of writing in a shared universe, is that each author gets their own little piece of the puzzle that they get to play with and mold. And as long as you don't break the world in general, we get a lot of leeway as to what we can do to bring a new aspect to the universe. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, since we're already getting to that point, we're going to stop for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man. And then when we come back, we're going to talk exclusively about Whistles of the Wendigo. So pause for a moment while we shamelessly shill for the man and woman this time.
The necromantic magic of the Great Lich has held sway over the world for 100 years. Can a young knight of the god of death and the last priestess of the goddess of life destroy him before their homeland falls? The only survivor of his convoy, journeyman knight Darian, is entrusted with an ancient scroll and one mission: return the scroll to the High Temple in Hothan, no matter the cost. He never expected that journey to include stumbling onto the last healer in the world. Now he must take not only the scroll but the woman across the kingdom to safety, each step dogged by the relentless undead. Death's Night, Book 1 in the completed War of the Lich series by Matthew T. Summers and Jenna Ray.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And with that, let's talk about the novel that brought us here. So, Whistles of Wendigo, a JTF Joint Task Force 13 novel that you co-wrote with someone. We're going to throw that up there. All right. No, this is standalone?
This was me. This one was me. I had a lot of help at the beginning to, kind of flesh out what I wanted to do, because like I said earlier, when you're writing in a shared universe, you can kind of do your own thing. However, there's certain rules that you have to follow and abide by. And so I had a good talk with Hillbilly about what was expected, what was allowed, what wasn't allowed. And I was bitterly disappointed when he told me that I could not make Annie Oakley my main character. I was so bummed.
Why not? That sounds like kind of rude.
Yeah, well, it has to do with, copyright and trademark, and she
That's
was
what lawyers are for.
Yeah, I guess she's too well known, and there'd be too many historians who might get mad if I didn't get every little detail exactly right. So
Yeah, the historians would probably get mad, but all right, yeah. I know what it was, because your Fae Wars was written with somebody else, and I just mixed them up. That's why.
Oh, there you go. That happens.
Can fix the titling though, and we're good. We're good.
All good.
So obviously, we talked about before the commercial how you got into the JTF 13 universe. And let me zoom in. You can see this glorious cover, but you can see the logo. of JTF 13. This is a Marine Corps unit, ergo the weirdness with the anchor. That's one of the big flaws of this universe is they didn't use the Army. And then of course you got the Wendigo sitting on a roof, looking badass. But so, what made you go with Wendigo as the creature?
So first of all, Jenny Posthumus did the cover, and I think she did a fantastic job. It's absolutely awesome. And so speaking of Annie Oakley, so I couldn't have Annie be one of my main characters, but Hillbilly did say that I could make her have a cameo. So I did a little bit of digging and found out that Annie Oakley was born in 1860 in a little town outside of Greenville, Ohio, just as the Civil War was winding down. And so I did some research.
No. If she was born in 1860, it's when the Civil War was starting.
Okay, my bad. So
I'm a history nerd. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. No, I appreciate you correcting me because I do not like to be wrong. So she was born in 1860. That's right. The book takes place in 1872. So she makes a cameo when she's 12.
Cool.
And at that point, the war's over. I got confused. Thank you for setting me straight.
Or is the war over? Dun, dun, dun. It's fought with the paranormal.
It's a different type of war. So anyway, I did. So when I figured out where she was born, I did some looking into the area and some of the local myth and legend of that region. And it turns out that there are some haunted woods where people swear they have seen and heard Wendigo to this day. And so I thought that might be fun to explore. If there was a Wendigo, maybe it was around way back in the late 1800s. So I had a lot of fun with that.
Sadly, in the 1800s, they didn't know who they were going to call, but we know. And they wouldn't have had this problem. Having said that, is your novel set in the 1800s or is it set now?
It is set in 1872.
Okay. What made you decide to look backwards for a JTF 13 novel instead of contemporary?
So again, it was all because I really wanted Annie Oakley in my book.
You could have made her immortal and brought her forward in time.
I could have, but then that might have
been...
Her
and Elvis, they could have been like hiding.
Yeah. I thought, well, doing, again, research on her, and I actually did research on her back when I was in junior high. It's been kind of a lifelong obsession. Her as a young child, she actually had to hunt to provide food for her family. Her father had passed away. Her mom had a gaggle of kids. Money was really hard to come by. And so she learned to shoot, not because she wanted to be famous. She learned to shoot so she could feed her family so they could eat. And so I have a scene in the book where a 12-year-old Annie is with her dad's old words are hard. Muzzleloader. Thank you. And she takes out a couple of rabbits, and that's what she had to do to feed her family. And I wanted to be able to use that aspect of her life and then just kind of worked backwards. Like, okay, so she was born in 1860. In 1872, she'd be 12. What's going on in Greenville, Ohio in 1872? Well, just so happens there's a prohibition movement through the region, and there's a tavern in a nearby town that burns to the ground because the women folk don't want the men folk to be drinking anymore.
How rude.
It's a whole thing. So it was a major research rabbit hole that I went down, but it was very, very enlightening, very intriguing. I have some real life places in the book that really existed in Greenville in 1872. And I was able to use some of them in the book. You know, there's some artistic license because, you know, it's fiction, but it was a lot of fun.
So with the main character, can you tell us who that is? Because obviously you said Annie Oakley is not the main character.
No.
So who is the main character?
So my main character is Daniel Wilkerson. He is a cavalryman who gets dispatched to Ohio, again, to deal with this temperance movement. And as they are en route to the town to check in and basically await further instruction, they're camping in the woods and something attacks one of their mounts, and they don't know what it is and what is going on and what the heck. And so their mount disappears. The next morning they go out to try to find it. They find it, or rather what's left of it. And so they make their way finally to town and they report what happened to them in the woods. And then they learn that it's not just the woods where weird things are happening. Livestock's disappearing, people are missing. There's this whole thing going on around Greenville, and they need to figure out, is this related to the prohibition movement? Is that why the governor called us here to look into this? What exactly is going on in this little town?
So, what weapons did you give them back then? I'm sure Spencer repeating rifle, probably, and revolvers, or did you make them go archaic with the muzzleloader? Because you could justify just about anything if you made a militia.
Yeah, so these were actual, they were actual 6th Army Cavalry. That's the unit that I used. And so I gave them weapons for that era. So they had Sharps rifles, they had Colt Dragoons, they had, I'm trying to remember what other weapons I used. At one point, there's artillery involved. So it was, yeah, it was a good time.
Okay. What, with the artillery, were they using it against the Wendigo, or was it, were there other forces at play besides the monster hunt?
Do you want spoilers or do you not want spoilers?
We'll go spoiler free because some of our guests get really antsy, especially about new books, if we spoil it for them.
Okay.
Okay. So is this basically man versus beast, or are there enemy armies at play?
So I would say this is more man versus man and man versus beast. A little bit of both going on.
Okay. Now the lore that's local that you use to pull this out of, is it actually Wendigo lore, or did you infer about the haunted woods that it was a Wendigo?
So some of it was artistic license, some of it was researching some of the Native American lore in the area, and so
Okay.
I do have a character who is Shawnee, and so I dug into some of their mythology and learned what their beliefs are with the Wendigo. They actually call them a stone coat, which is interesting. Bullets and sharp things traditionally cannot defeat the stone coat. You have to do other things to stop it. And so that's something that my guys need to try to figure out. Is this a Wendigo? Is this a stone coat? What exactly is this thing that we're dealing with here? And are monsters real? Is it a demon? What is it? And so there's a bit of a mystery involved as they try to figure out what exactly they're dealing with. And then how do they stop it once they figure out what it is?
Any truth to the rumor that the way they killed the Wendigo was they had Hillbilly do karaoke?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
So with this now, obviously, if it's 1872, there is still obvious tension post Civil War with the Reconstruction, and the military would have been integrated at this point with people that had previously fought against each other at some levels, or at least their parents had, depending on the age of the soldier. Did you play into any of the post-war tension, or did you kind of leave that off to the wayside for the plot?
So I did a little bit. I focused more on, my guys were Union cavalry, and so they were a Union unit when the war happened. So the tension that I leaned into was more the white man versus the Native American, because that's what I used in the book.
I mean, it's period correct. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. For my purposes and the story that I was trying to tell, that made more sense to focus on as opposed to the many other possible tensions that I could have included.
Okay. So is this a standalone novel? Is there more from this this plot through line of the JTF universe?
So this is currently a standalone. I know there are other books in the JTF 13 universe that will be coming out, whether they are set in the Civil War or modern day. I want to say there's a modern day one coming out soon-ish. And then as far as a sequel to this one, I like to leave my options open. So I don't know. I guess we'll find out if people enjoy this one and if they want another one, and we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. Maybe you could play more in Ohio and get the Ohio State. I've seen the TV shows. I know they put the T as capital. So there's room in the plot if you wanted to take Whistles of the Wendigo. That next step, you probably could find plot holes.
I never like to write myself into a corner, so
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
nobody puts baby in a corner. Nobody puts Charlie in a corner.
So, are all of the JTF universe books are they a series of standalones? Is it episodic in that nature?
Currently, yes. I don't believe there are any sequels or trilogies yet. There might be some in the works, but none that have been published to my knowledge.
Okay. When you were writing this, given that you were writing with period pieces, did you get to go out and fire some of these older weapons for the funsies?
Have you been on my Instagram?
I have not. Should I?
There is video of me shooting some black powder revolvers when I was researching for a specific scene in this book. Yes.
Okay. They smoke a lot more than you think they do. I did period reenacting as a living historian. So I have entered marksmanship contests with an 1861 Springfield.
Oh, that's awesome.
And at one point in time, I could fire off 4 rounds in a minute.
That's impressive.
That's soldiering, to quote somebody we all know. But yeah, so like I know a lot of people when they actually field those weapons, because they're all solid wood and metal, they're heavier than a lot of people think. And it always, when you see someone pick it up for the first time, they're always shocked at the weight.
Yes, they are much heavier than your modern, polymer frame weapon for sure. And then the trigger too, the ones that I fired, the trigger was lighter than I thought it would be. There was barely any tension. So it was an experience. And then one of the scenes that I wrote shortly after I fired those, what you're talking about with the amount of smoke and the way that the powder, goes through your nose and it cakes the back of your throat, and it's just that chalky on your tongue kind of. It was so visceral. It's like, okay, yeah. So just thinking about it, I can taste it. It's like, okay, this part's going in the book.
Yeah, and you're with the revolver, you do most of that. You wouldn't be doing that loading in the field. If you got to a point where you needed a reload in the revolver, that's why they had a brace of revolvers or pistols, or they would switch to their sword, bayonet, whatever, because those are so cumbersome to load.
Right. I mean, they did have cartridges in 1872 as far as reloading, so they could reload faster, but all of my characters carried multiple revolvers because, it's Ohio, but what's the New York reload? Second gun, right? That's your fastest reload. So that's what they did.
Yeah. Now, when you were playing with this, was this all uniformed troops against the monster? Or did you play in bringing locals, be it Ohio militia or local natives, into the fight?
So we have the Shawnee character I mentioned earlier. He is an advisor who helps them, and then they are also aided by the local county sheriff. And then I have a few other side characters who help in their own unique ways.
Okay. So is there a religious angle to this? Because I could see paranormal leaning sometimes into that, the gods and the demons and all that. Or was this strictly man versus monster and bad guys?
So I tried not to lean too heavily. Wow, that was a Freudian slip, excuse me. Too heavily into religion. It does come up in the book. Only because of the time period and the Prohibition movement and the reason behind the Prohibition movement. The women honestly believed that if their men drank alcohol, they would be consumed and taken over by these demonic spirits. And so that comes up in the story again because it's period correct. But I didn't want my book to be preachy. I wanted it to be a fun read that people would enjoy, and hopefully they will.
Was there anything that surprised you when you did the research for this novel?
Oh, well, honestly, the Prohibition movement itself, I did not realize that was a thing in the 1800s because, when living on the West Coast, we learned about, the Wild West and the gold rush and all that. And we didn't start learning about, the whole Prohibition thing until 1920s. So the fact that in another part of the country, there was a prohibition in the late 1800s. I thought, that's interesting. Huh. So it was fun to be able to use that piece of knowledge and then craft a story around it. That's the fun thing with, alternate history, is that you can take something that really happened, and maybe it didn't happen the way that the history books told us it happened. Maybe it happened because there was this weird entity invading the town, and the people wanted to do whatever they could, including drying up the saloons, to try to make it go away.
Okay. Now, do you have? So, is this a town cut off from the world for the purposes of the story, or do they communicate with? Because they had the telegram, so they could have communicated with anywhere in the world that they want. Well, in the U.S. that they wanted to. So presumably the soldiers are updating their chain of command or whatever. Or did you keep them isolated so it was kind of that horror movie aesthetic?
So it wasn't intentional. There were telegraph messages that came back and forth. There were characters who went to neighboring towns to resupply. One of the restaurant owners, for example, or the general store owner, he has to go make a run for supplies in a neighboring town and come back. So I was able to use that in the plot. There is a scene where my guys are supposed to meet up with reinforcements, but the reinforcements don't arrive when they're supposed to. And so they're wondering what's kept them and why aren't they here yet. So there was a little bit of tension that I was able to bring to the story with that element. But as far as them being cut off, like, the modern day horror movies, pick up the phone and the line's dead. Oh my God, it wasn't anything like that.
There's a reason a lot of authors like to write their mysteries pre-cell phone.
Right?
So obviously we talked about the main character as a cavalry guy. I mean, it'd been cooler if he was infantry, but I won't hold it against you.
Yeah, well, I married an infantry guy, so there's that. I'm trying. I'm doing my part.
I mean, you blue cord adjacent. We'll accept it. So were there any secondary characters that you had a lot of fun with aside from the main character and aside from obviously Annie Oakley?
Yes. So the Cookie, who is Sergeant Taylor, he's the camp cook and their supply sergeant for my troop. He was a lot of fun to write. He's a real jovial, happy-go-lucky guy, but he's also really, really superstitious. And so that was a lot of fun to play with. And then another side character that I really enjoyed was Abigail, and she is the serving gal slash maid at the Air Wagner or Wagner house where the troop ends up staying.
So obviously, we talked a little bit about the fact you are a mother, so you have kids. So if you were, somebody asked you, hey, is this appropriate for my kid? What would you rate this book?
I very intentionally kept it PG-13. There is one, possibly two scenes where there is some romantic element and it fades to black. So nothing explicit on the page. There is some language, but not very much. And then as far as the horror elements, there are a couple scenes where it's pretty gory, but nothing that would give kids younger than 13 nightmares. I mean, my youngest son's 12, and I wouldn't have a problem if he wanted to read it. Not that he reads anything, but if he wanted to, I wouldn't have a problem.
We got to fix that. Kids need to read.
I am working on it, man. I am working on it.
All right. So
I'm an author. My kid doesn't like to read. What?
I know, that's just weird.
Yeah.
So it's mostly age appropriate as far as content goes. Were there any themes that you played with when you were writing this novel?
So there was a bit of the good versus evil in this one. We talked about man versus man, man versus beast. So the beast is a literal beast, but it's also a metaphor for something else. And if you're familiar with the rest of the JTF series, they hint at something called the 10. And that is something that I allude to in this book, even though the 10 isn't something that's really been part of the forefront. I want to say the next book in the series is going to talk more about that. So those of you who are fans of the series, file that away in the back of your brain because it will come up later in other people's works.
So what she's saying is there will be a test later.
Pop quiz.
So with the one of the other things that people get confused by wrong when it comes to period clothing is how they fit, how comfortable they are, that sort of thing. Have you played with the wool and the linen and the materials that they would have worn clothing wise for the period?
I do mention there's a scene where they're walking through the muddy street, and I mentioned how their trousers are completely soaked and they're weighing them down and it's hard to move and their boots are muddy and itchy. Yeah, I do a little bit more for, scene dressing. I don't want to spend 3 pages on what they're wearing. That's just not my style of writing, but I do touch on it so that the reader can get a better picture of where we are in the current what they're reading.
I'm just going to say that Tolkien is disappointed in you. That you
I
didn't
am
want to spend
sorry.
3 pages describing the grass.
I'm sorry, Professor. I'm sorry.
Wait, joke's on you. I like that shit.
No,
So
all right.
I like the descriptive stuff. That is the one thing I don't like is when you read a novel and I couldn't tell you what someone looked like. I'm like,
Yeah. Remember though, I cut my teeth on short stories. So
no, absolutely. And it's a modern trend to do that. I recognize I'm swimming against the current on that one. But so if you were listening, like obviously you write this, presumably not by hand, but you're using a computer aided device. Do you
Yes.
listen to music while you wrote this to like set the mood of the period?
So I'm a fan of country music. I listen to other things as well. And I like, the more classic country as well as like, what I grew up with, 90s country. And I tried listening to music and I found that I was typing the lyrics to the song I was listening to. So for me, and I know a lot of my other author friends think I'm crazy. I can't listen to music when I'm writing because I focus too much on the music and I don't focus on the words. So for me, when I'm writing, it's usually either I'm home alone and the house is quiet, other than my dog's running around, or my kid's home and he's playing video games, and that I can tune out to focus. So it's background mom noise, I guess, is my mixtape what I write to.
We'll allow it. We'll allow it. If you were going to assign music to this as the background for someone reading, assuming they don't listen to the graphic novel or listen to the graphic novel, listen to me, I know words. Assuming they're not listening to the audiobook, if they were going to listen to music in the background, what would you recommend?
Oh gosh. Honestly, it's going to depend on the scene.
Okay.
There's some scenes where, your classic Western type soundtrack is going to be applicable. There's scenes where a horror soundtrack's going to be applicable. There's a scene in a saloon where everybody's dancing and laughing and having a gay old time. So whatever type of old-timey saloon fun.
Can music.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's
so,
kind of a hodgepodge.
So, obviously, like to make fiction interesting, we put our characters in very horrible, no good places. So, if your characters, Annie Oakley and the sergeant and the main character, if they met you in a dark alley and they knew that you were the Charli Cox who created their torment, how do you see those interactions playing out?
I think Annie would be fine. I didn't do anything horrible to her because how can you do that to someone who's been one of your heroes for as long as since I was a very little girl? Wilkerson, I think, would forgive me because he learned a lot through the course of this experience. And I think Cookie would have some very harsh words for me, but then we would split some hardtack and all would be forgiven.
Have you ever eaten hardtack?
I have. It's awful.
It is, assuming you don't get it fresh, and very rarely did you. But, I hear the boll weevils added nutrients, like protein or something.
Protein, yeah, extra protein. Right, yeah.
That's why I always laugh all the way back from the beginning when someone said it was military grade. You knew it was going to fall apart the first time you used it.
It's so funny you mentioned that because, me being a civilian, it's like all those commercials, oh, military grade, that's really great. And then my husband even before the memes came out. He's like, honey, you do realize military grade just means created by the cheapest bidder, right? I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, if you were going to do, because obviously, this is writing down, but if you were going to write another JTF universe book and you weren't going to set it in Ohio in the 1870s, just brainstorming, shooting from the hip, what kind of story do you think would be fun to do next?
Oh gosh, there's so much. I am going to admit that I am not the history buff that I should be. So if we weren't going to do post-Civil War Ohio, I would probably do something more along the lines of later in the 1800s and do like the Wild West, because that's originally where I wanted to set the story. So I think I would go there.
Bleeding Kansas, Missouri War, pre-Civil War would be an interesting, because there's lots of chaos and you can hide a lot of shenanigans. What if all the deaths weren't related to the bushwhackers? And of course, that is the territory that birthed Billy the Kid.
Right.
Was he alive in 1872 or was he dead already? I know there's lots of stagecoaches and trains that could be robbed for funsies as well, so you could get a heist.
Yeah, that is an option. Speaking of the 1800s and pre-Civil War, Casey Moore's actually, his JTF book Witch Hunt took place earlier, chronologically than mine, and one of his characters actually makes a cameo in my book. So,
oh, nice.
For those of you who are fans of the series, there you go. His gift to you. He let me borrow his character.
So legacy novels are the ones that are the pre-JTF unit formation stories?
Correct. They don't actually refer to themselves as JTF 13. They call themselves a special unit because they didn't have an official name at that point.
Were there any Pinkertons involved in this story?
Sadly, there were not.
They make a really good bad guy.
They really do. They really do. I've enjoyed a lot of weird Westerns written by other people, and whenever the Pinkertons show up, I'm just like, all right, I'm ready. Let's do this. Take that guy out.
I have a sibling that lives in West Virginia where some of the mining wars with the Pinkertons came in to stop the miners fighting for better living conditions. So I hear all the stories about how they're the devil.
Oh, yeah.
In the South, it's Sherman is the devil. In West Virginia, it's the Pinkertons.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So, okay. So obviously this is the Whistles of the Wendigo story in the JTF 13 universe. Could you give us sort of a Reader's Digest version of what is JTF 13 if people have been listening and they don't know, because I realize we didn't cover that part?
Oh, yeah. So Joint Task Force 13 is an elite unit within our military where they hold the line between heaven and hell. They are sent in to investigate the paranormal and things that cannot be explained by conventional reasons. So things that go bump in the night that soldiers, Marines, sailors might encounter when they're at war. JTF 13 gets sent in to investigate, and war is really the clinker. Whenever war breaks out on our planet, the veil between our world and the other world gets thin, and that's where the monsters and creatures can step through. And so it's JTF 13's job to either get rid of the creatures or send them back where they came from before they can wreak too much more havoc on our current Earth.
Okay. So since we've covered that already, for people that are interested in your next novel, obviously you've got the Fae Wars that just came out. This is will be released by the time this episode airs. What are you working on now?
So I'm actually working on something in my own IP.
Okay.
It is it's kind of a cross genre at the moment. It's got aspects of mil sci-fi. It's also got aspects of space fantasy. We've got aliens. We've got some interesting mythology from Africa, of all places. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it all comes together. I've actually written 2 short stories that have been published. Shields in Tomorrow's Hope. That was the first story I ever sold with 3 Ravens. And then in CKP's anthology Express Elevator to Hell, I have a story, Trust the Cheddar, and that's also set in this universe. So I've got ideas for a series. It's just a matter of actually making it make sense where it's not just in my head, but a reader knows what's happening too. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm in the plotting stages, you could say.
Okay. So if you could stop everything, if you put your project on hold, if somebody called you and said, hey, Charlie, we're offering you a chance to write in this universe, what universes or franchises are you stopping everything to write for?
Oh, well, let's see. Sequel to Fae Wars, of course. I would do that in a heartbeat. And then I got my start in the Four Horsemen universe. If they wanted me to write something for them, I think it would be pretty fitting for my character author arc to write something for them, since that's where I started.
Okay. Well, I mean, outside of that, are there any properties you watched or enjoyed growing up that you'd visit, or games that you've played?
I'm not much of a gamer, to be completely
Okay.
honest. I mean, we talked about Stargate, so yeah, that'd be a hell of a lot of fun. Whatever did happen with Carter and Jack? Did they ever get together, or did they not?
Depending on, I've seen some short fiction out there, but I just don't remember if it was real or if it was canon or not.
Fanfic, yeah.
Yeah, I've read enough of it back in the day. I thought they were together in universe, but I don't remember. I remember the universe controversy was the actor that played Colonel O'Neill had gotten older because he's like in his 60s at that point, and they were, he's not in military regs, and I'm like, if you look that good at 60, you shut up.
Right. Well, and in real life, he took time off to be a dad and take care of his kids, and I say good on him.
Oh, absolutely. I just mean like they're getting on these people like for not being in military regs, and I'm like, the dude's 60. He might even be within regs for 60 because you know they get nicer as you get older.
Exactly.
So okay, so where might people find you on the wild interwebs if they wanted to check you out?
So I've got a website, charliecox.net and charliecox.com. Notice how my name is spelled. If you put an E in there, I have no idea where you're going to end up. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and X and TikTok, and I have a YouTube channel as well. And if you go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter. I send it out once a month, and I also recently created a Substack. And I'm on Amazon, so come find me. I'm out there. Yeah.
So this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So do your part, people. It really does make a difference. And with that, you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blaze Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blaze Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Twitters, our Spotify, our Discord, our Blasters and Blaze Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandblazepodcast@gmail.com. Again, Blasters and Blaze Podcast at gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans for Madam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. If you want to help support the show, because these episodes are not free to produce, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee, brand coffee, till it pours out of their toenails, people. And then, no, we're not drinking it at that point. But, just buy the coffee, all right? If you use the link in the show notes, the discount code is Podcast Grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. And with that, I would like to thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my absentee and crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blaze Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things to go boom. And with that, we're going to hit the end button. Don't cuss yet, Charlie. Jeez.